San Diego Comic-Con Rings of Power Hall H panel recap. On Friday morning, the cast and the showrunners of The Lord of the Rings of Power took the stage of the iconic San Diego Comic-Con Hall H to share an exclusive look at Season 2 with fans. I was invited by Prime Video to attend this panel, as well as a few other Rings of Power related events throughout the week. I took extensive notes during the panel, and I'm thrilled to share a recap with those who were not able to join us in person. Please note that the responses to questions are paraphrased because I was not recording the entire panel, but I was taking notes. The panel began with a live performance of NAMPAT, mixed with what sounds like the Sauron theme, so it might be kind of a new mix, led by Bear McCreary along with the full choir and drums. Then, as the lights dimmed, the wraparound screen immediately drew the audience back into Middle-earth, with an exclusive clip that I have not yet seen published anywhere online. The primary focus of the clip was, fittingly, the Rings of Power themselves. Of interest is that in this clip, the name Annatar is used, although it doesn't appear in the official trailer. The clip was narrated with a voiceover in the first person, and I believe that it was Sauron speaking, but it didn't really sound like Charlie Vickers, so I'm kind of wondering if it was the actor who might be playing the prologue version of Sauron, or it may have just been maybe distorted by the heavy bass going on the speakers, or just kind of changed a little bit or modified. I'm not quite sure. I'm really hoping that they will publish this clip online because it was super cool, but a lot of the times with Comic-Con and Hall H, things that are shown during the panels are actually exclusive to Comic-Con, and so they are like contractually unable to publish, so I'm not quite sure if it'll ever be seen by anyone else, but it was really, really cool. So then Charlie Vickers, Morvith Clark, and Benjamin Walker, who play Sauron, Galadriel, and Gil-galad, are brought onto the stage. They began with a short discussion of how Galadriel has learned not to trust handsome men in Season 1, and that in Season 2, Gil-galad is ready to tell her as much. Immediately after this, the lights are dimmed and the audience is shown the trailer for the very first time. After the trailer ends, the cast and showrunners join the stage. Present on this panel were Patrick McKay, J.D. Payne, Morvith Clark, Charlie Vickers, Emma Horvath, Sophia Nomvete, Benjamin Walker, Charles Edwards, Maxim Baldry, Lloyd Owen, Daniel Wayman, Cynthia Adai Robinson, Ismael Cruz Cordova, Megan Richards, Robert Aramayo, Tristan Gravel, and Tyro Muhafedin. Sam Hazeldine and Robert Strange joined the stage later. The panel moderator for Hall H this year was Yvette Nicole Brown. After this began questions and responses from the cast and showrunners. How are the stakes being raised in Season 2? The showrunners have said, Season 2 is watching Sauron set everyone against each other to build power. It's a psychological drama. It's filled with gaslighting as he manipulates people into forging 7 rings for one person, 9 rings for others. What is Elrond's relationship with Galadriel? Robert Aramayo. His head tells him she's made some questionable decisions, but his heart believes she is a force for good in Middle-earth, and he cares for her. Where is Celebrimbor at the beginning of Season 2? Charles Edwards responds that Celebrimbor is feeling adrift after the forging of the 3 rings. He feels abandoned. He's waiting, spirits are low, he's vulnerable. And then the doorbell rings and somebody turns up, and we take it from there. After this, there was a clip of some behind-the-scenes footage which featured the making of the rings as props for the show, featuring John Howe designing and discussing their roots in Norse mythology. One highlight of this clip is a scene from the show in which Celebrimbor is asking Halbrand news of the rings. Did they work? And Halbrand responds that they worked wonders. So it's becoming clear what angle Halbrand or Sauron is going to take with Celebrimbor. Between Celebrimbor and Sauron, which is the real Lord of the Rings? Charlie Vickers responds, Maybe Celebrimbor starts as the first Lord of the Rings, but then it changes. It's a power struggle. No one person is fully in power, but it's a back-and-forth, psychological thriller the whole season. When asked about the dwarven plotline, Sophia Nomvente responds that Disa is set to fix the whole damn thing. The dwarven rings solve their problems, but also bring about new problems. When asked about the friendship between Durin IV and Elrond, Robert Arameo responds, Elrond and Durin's friendship is very important to him. Through it, he can bring the two peoples together, and there's a sense of brotherhood that is really important. After this, the showrunners spoke a little bit more about the season, saying that Season 2 is about entering the nuclear age, and everyone wants the nuclear codes, but they don't realize it all feeds into Sauron. When asked about Adar, Charlie Vickers responds, at the end of Season 1, we see Sauron descending into Mordor, and in the second season, we find out that the first person he sees there is Adar. At the mention of Adar's name, the panel is interrupted by an orc army appearing on screen, and an orc played by Robert Strange escorts Sam Hazeldine onto the stage. This was a really sweet moment, and it was really funny, and I absolutely loved it. Is Adar an evil character? Sam Hazeldine responds, of course Adar is not an evil character. He's protecting his children. At the end of Season 1, he's made a home for his children, so really his work is done. But he's got a nagging feeling. He's thinking about the familiar man he met in Episode 6 of Season 1. So he's distracted until Halbrand arrives. Charlie Vickers also adds, Adar and Halbrand meet each other in the first episode, and there's a lot that goes under the surface. They're on a level, but there's stuff under the surface. They've known each other for tens of hundreds of years. They have shared history. The audience was then shown a behind-the-scenes look at the various new creatures in Season 2, featuring Ents, maybe an Entwife, Shelob, an entire army of orcs, Damrod the Hill Troll. In this clip, there's a really sad moment where we see Adar directing Damrod to march into battle, which I think will be quite emotional in the context of the show. When asked about Numenor, Lloyd Owen responds, there is a coming battle for the soul of Numenor. The question is, which side of history do they want to be on? Some impossible choices must be made between the love for his country and the love for his daughter, and that is complicated by some of his feelings for Miriel. My daughter, as beautiful as she is a complicated one. Emma Horvath adds, Eärien is very angry. She thinks her brother is dead, and she will follow anyone who promises to right that injustice. Cynthia Adai Robinson then adds, when this season starts, we have returned from a losing battle, a very unpopular decision. Numenor is at a crossroads, and she must decide in which direction to lead her people. This ties into Numenor's elvish heritage and traditions. When asked about filming the sea trial, Cynthia responds, I went for a little swim. She also thanked the VFX and post-production crew and expressed her excitement upon finally seeing the trailer. We're all each other's fans, she said. When asked about the Ents, Ismail Cruz Cordova explained that the Ents were created by Yavanna to protect the forest. Tyro Muhafidin also adds, if you don't love Ents, you're just weird. They're so sick. When asked about young Shelob, Maxim Baldry says, I was so scared, but Shelob is a legendary monster in Tolkien, and it was the most amazing thing to film, and I can't wait for you to see it. I got muddy the whole season. Ismail Cruz Cordova then adds, our characters, Isildur and Arondir, have a beautiful journey this season. When asked about the Balrog, Sophia Nomvente responds, there's something lurking in the bowels of Khazad-dûm. The Balrog is here. What can I say? Was I allowed to say that? She also adds that Disa will do more singing and resonating. When asked about Poppy's journey this season, Megan Richards responds, for Poppy, it is very much a continuation of her journey in Season 1, but there are other parts of her life that are getting to be explored. She is leading the way through Rune, and it is a heavy weight to have on her shoulders. The showrunners then added that there is a romance for Poppy that we'll get to see. When asked about the stranger, Daniel Wayman responds, we've seen the stranger doesn't really understand his power, and he comes into the same area as Tom Bombadil. The stranger is disoriented. He spars and sings with Tom Bombadil. At this point, the panel is beginning to wrap up, and so Morvith Clark, who had not been asked any questions at all during the panel, just says, "Hello to all of you." And then J.D. Payne says it fills his heart with so much joy to see all of the costumes in the crowd, and he thanks fans for their support of the show. After this, we moved into the fan question and answer session. Question for Charlie Vickers. Were you worried you might be recast because Sauron is a shapeshifter? Charlie responds, I had full faith that I was never ever going to be recast. We know there is a point in the Legendarium where Sauron does lose his fair form, so we'll see what their plan is for that. It was also in this section that the showrunners said something, but their mic cut out, so honestly I have no idea what they said. For all of the cast, can you share some stories about fighting? At this, Ismael Cruz Cordova gave a little bit of fighting advice. He explained when they're punching, lean in, punch first. You've got one chance. For all of the cast, what would you name your own real-life weapons? Morvith Clark responds that she would name her weapon White Flame in Welsh. Ismael Cruz Cordova mentioned that he named his sword Rihanna. And Benjamin Walker remarks that he is keeping Aiglos, which is Gil-galad's spear. For Sophia Nomvente, what is the chance Disa will play the voice of reason in Season 2? Sophia responds, there is a big chance that Durin and Disa are the voice of reason in trying to save Khazad-dûm, and that the dwarves are in trying to save Middle-earth as well. For the showrunners, will Glorfindel appear in the Rings of Power? Showrunners, the answer is yes. There is room for a lot of people to show up. After this, Patrick McKay adds, Celeborn will be back, don't worry. When asked about who Theo's father is, Ismael Cruz Cordova responds that Arondir is not Theo's biological father. We don't know who his dad is, but in this series we show what family is about and show how the bond of fatherhood shows up. Theo and Arondir have a father-son bond despite not being related by blood. After this, the showrunners add that Theo's real dad will be revealed down the line. When asked about costuming and prop design, Morvith Clark responds that the costumes are incredible and they're so varied. Morvith loves Elrond's armor and says the craftsmanship is incredible. Robert Aramayo mentions that he got to have input into the design of his sword and such. The showrunners explained, costuming begins with mood boards and then narrows down from there. They mentioned artists such as John Howe working on costume and prop design, and the Rings of Power specifically. Miriel's gown is mentioned specifically as an example of expert craftsmanship. It is also mentioned here that Cynthia's white gown is supposed to be for a coronation, but that something else goes down. Cynthia then adds that she's proud to wear these costumes. Will there be LGBT representation in the show? This question, the showrunners respond, maybe you've seen it already. When asked about the sizzling chemistry between Sauron and Galadriel, and can you give me a little bit of hope for all the fanfiction writers in the room that we will see more of hot Sauron and Galadriel together? Charlie Vickers responded, I think there is hope for sure. What can we say? Patrick McKay responds, say it. And then Charlie Vickers says, yeah, I think we will. Will there be more Dwarven and Elvish music in the series? Benjamin Walker responds, I mean, yeah. In the books, the elves see a ripple on the water and start singing. Yes, Gil-galad sings. At this moment, Ben Walker stands up to sing a verse in Elvish. Question of the day is for Robert Aramayo. Is Elrond's weather-worn cloak in Season 1 significant? Robert responds, it's a relic from another time. I love the stories of the fall of Gondolin. There's lots of possibility for some of those relics to have survived, so that was the idea of it. As the panel concludes, the audience is shown the trailer for a second time while the cast watches as well. Thanks for listening to this recap of the Hall H Rings of Power panel presentation. It was very fun to be able to attend this, and it is my honor to have been able to take notes and share all of this with you all. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing or telling a friend about Tea with Tolkien.